what's happening now on kblkradio.com, and thank you for tuning in. This is your host, Bishop Bowser. We have an exciting show for you today, and everyone should be listening. So right now, I want you to text or call 7 people and encourage them to tune in to this show. So hurry up and do it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we have a great show for you. We have Jay Bowser and Barry Harris Jr. with Paving Great Futures. And this week's topic, the Black Agenda for San Diego. So we're going to get into this, and this is going to be an exciting show. So you got to let somebody know right here, right now. But before we get started, I want to give you a black inspiration for today. And it is by w.e.d. Du Bois. And it is the most influential public critique of Booker T. Washington's policy of racial accommodation and gradual reform rather than revolution. Came in 1903 when black leader and intellectual W.e.d. Du Bois published an essay in his collection, The Souls of Black Folk, with the title of Mr. Booker T. Washington and Others. Du Bois rejected Washington's willingness to avoid rocking the racial boat, calling instead for political power, insisting on civil rights and the higher education of Negro youth. Here is what W.e.d. Du Bois said, and I quote, "The black men of America have a duty to perform, a duty stern and delicate, a forward movement to oppose a part of the work of their greatest leader. So far as Mr. Washington preaches thrift, patience, and industrial training for the masses, we must hold up his hands and strive with him, rejoicing in his honors and glorying in the strength of this Joshua called of God and of a man to lead the headless host. But as far as Mr. Washington apologizes for injustice, north or south, does not rightly value the privilege of the duty of voting, belittles the emasculating effect of caste distinctions, and opposes the higher training and ambition of our brighter minds, as far as he, the South, or the nation does this, we must unceasingly and firmly oppose them. By every civilized and peaceful method, we must strive for the rights which the world accords to men, clinging unwaveringly to those great words which the sons of the fathers would fain forget. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And our sources found in W.e.d. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk, Chicago, 1903, and that's end of quote. Booker T. Washington and W.e.d. Du Bois both fought for equality and civil rights, but Booker T. Washington was looking at long-term equality. He is looking down the road. He is telling blacks to be patient and put up with racism and racial inequality and work within the system and hush a little bit. He urged blacks to accept discrimination for the time being. He tells blacks to get a vocational education, work hard, do what you are told, and you will win the respect of white people. Booker T. Washington wins favor among white politicians because he is telling blacks not to be rebel rousers, don't shout or protest. Booker T. Washington was the first black person to be invited as a guest to the White House by Theodore Roosevelt, but Roosevelt was a racist and only wanted the black vote. Roosevelt believed that blacks were not his equal and were inferior to whites intellectually. Booker T. Washington was the inside the system black person, and whites used him to help keep the blacks in their place. W.e.d. Du Bois had the attitude that said, "We are not going to take it." Du Bois believed Washington's strategy would serve only to perpetuate white oppression. He is not going to wait for freedom or equality. Du Bois tells blacks that they need to fight for their rights because it is constitutional. Du Bois helped found the NAACP. He is the first black person to graduate from Harvard. The Du Bois philosophy of agitation and protest for civil rights flowed directly into the civil rights movement, which began to develop in the 1950s and exploded in the 1960s. Blacks have always had to deal with unjust leaders who did not respect or fear God. A true leader will always rule justly, treating everyone fairly out of respect for the Lord. The Bible says in 2 Samuel 23 chapter 23, verse 3 through 4. The God of Israel spoke, the rock of Israel said to me, whoever rules fairly over people rules with respect for God. It's like the morning light at dawn, like a morning without clouds. He is like sunshine after a rain that makes the grass sprout from the ground. End of quote. Now I want to play for you a audio. It's a video actually, but you're going to hear the audio part. And this is Malcolm X, and he's talking about the house Negro and the field Negro. And so here you go. It's about 2 minutes, a little less than 2 minutes. So listen to it, and then we'll be right back. Here you go.
When black people like me talk to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They sent some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master, good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes, they ate the worst food, and they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes. I'm a field Negro.
All right. So that was Malcolm X talking about the house Negro and the field Negro. And it kind of goes back, to the debates. We always have two kind of groups, even like today you have the Black Lives Matter movement, that is, agitation and protest. And then you have others that, oh, no, let's continue to work with the system and so on. I believe that somewhere in between you'll find a good process to bring about change. But today, in today's time, racism is very subtle. And so you have to call it out as you see it so our people can be educated on it. So today, I want to open up. We have with us this morning Jay Bowser, Mr. Jay Bowser, and Mr. Barry Harris Jr. with Paving Great Futures. And, of course, as we said, our topic today is the Black Agenda for San Diego. And so, Mr. Bowser and Mr. Harris, welcome to What's Happening Now on KBLKRadio.com.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning. It's a blessing to be here.
All right. So here's something I want to send in. I'm ask you all some questions here. San Diego is losing black people because of its high housing prices. Median household income for blacks is $46,650. The median income for overall in San Diego is $64,058. 30% of blacks in San Diego own homes. There is no fulfillment of the dream for black Americans in San Diego. So, Mr. Harris, what needs to be done to help realize the American dream for blacks?
Well, first off, we just realized the challenge that we have here in San Diego.
Yes.
Number one, it's one of the most expensive cities in the United States. So, I mean, that's not just a black problem, that's all the way around. Mm-hmm. However, coming from a black perspective, right. I would say, we just have to find ways to build wealth to be able to sustain in an economy that's continually increasing as far as price. Price is good, and not just housing, but all things involved in the cost of living, whether it's gas or groceries, anything else. I think it's going to be a matter of us really taking ownership of our financial and economic capabilities as a people, starting with owning businesses, starting with focusing on, higher paying careers and opportunities. So I think the leadership amongst black people in San Diego really need to focus on opportunities for developing economic stimulus within our own community.
Okay. And can you give an example of what some of the ways that black leaders can lead that charge?
Absolutely. Now that I'm starting to mature and get a little older here in the city of San Diego, I'm starting to view myself as a leader. Doing work with Pavement Grade Futures, with Jay here. We've always had dialogue on what can we actually do to, get in a better position.
Right.
We've always heard theories, we need black businesses, we need, this and we need that. But at the end of the day, if we're not actually taking steps to realize the things that we talk about, then it's all lip service. So what we did personally, I like to talk about what I can do personally. We definitely started Paving Great Futures with the mindset of how can we develop opportunities for individuals to make a substantial income.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we see where there's negative things going on. You might be acquiring economic means through things that are not quite legal. But when you're speaking with people, you can't tell them to stop doing one thing and not replace it with another. So through Paving Great Futures, we are starting to look at opportunities, building not just businesses, but opportunities, career development, and things of that nature, so that we can start going after opportunities that provide the income that we need to survive in this very expensive city that we live in.
Amen. All right, Mr. Bowser, what needs to be done to increase home ownership for blacks?
I'm a big fan of education. You can't, do anything just based on a trial and error. That's going to take forever. Going based off of trial and error, and that's pretty much what a lot of people did when it came to starting businesses. And with the the housing market is just let me just throw some money out there, and hopefully I got my credit up, and I'm gonna get a home, and just take a shot in the dark. And that's just not how life works, man. You have to plan these things out. You have to be educated. So I think our community itself needs more education on credit and keeping credit, on financial education, financial literacy based on how to make money, how to keep money, how to diversify your portfolio and things like that. And if you're looking at a house, is it going to be an asset to you, or is that house going to be a liability to you? So once you understand those two different things, then you're better equipped to get into the housing market. So what happened was, say about 10 years ago, a lot within the black community were duped because you could have had just barely fair credit, if not bad credit, got a subprime loan. And from there, thought you were acquiring an American dream, but when you go about it the wrong way because you're not financially educated, it actually can be more harmful. So owning a house isn't always a great thing if you do it the wrong way. You have to look at it as it's going to be putting money in my pocket or taking money out of my pocket, thus making it a liability or asset.
I absolutely agree with that. I think we actually just have to be honest with ourselves and really ask ourselves, is this home that I'm looking at really worth $550,000? Is this home really worth $1 million?
Yeah,
you know, obviously we have a premium on homes here in San Diego, being that everybody wants to live here. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at certain properties, the numbers just don't make sense. So I think one thing we do definitely have to do is just be honest with ourselves. Is the value truly there in what we're looking at purchasing?
And then that's where you teach timing, because when it comes to real estate, it's all about timing as well. So just because buying a house for you today may not be good, maybe in 5 years when the market dips down, maybe buying it then is a good time. And so just being educated.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and we're gonna be right back. So stay tuned to what's happening now on KBOKRadio.com, and we'll be right back after this break and these commercials. All right, welcome back to What's Happening Now on KBOKRadio.com, and we're discussing today the Black Agenda for San Diego. We have Mr. Harris with us and Mr. Bowser with Paving with Great Futures. And so my question now, this question is for both of you, and we can begin with Mr. Harris and then Mr. Bowser. Should affordable housing be offered in all neighborhoods?
So, first off, I'd like to thank you for the respect, Mr. Harris. That's so eloquent there. Affordable housing in all neighborhoods. That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we need to provide affordable housing for individuals that truly need affordable housing, which honestly in San Diego, that could be the whole population, really, when you look at the cost of living. To be honest, I'm not an expert on affordable housing as far as that. So, my brother, I'll shoot that over to my brother, Jay Bowser here. He may have a little more insight for you on that.
That definitely is a tough question based on, say if you're living in a neighborhood that is upper middle class, upper class, and to get individuals per se that are from the lower class to move in. That would scare a lot of folks that are in that situation. But then at the same time, I can definitely understand someone at the bottom, in lower class, having a chance and a shot at living in one of these places. So I definitely can understand that as well. But I kind of want to divert back to us as black people. Not that we get handouts or looking for handouts, because we definitely haven't got reparations and we definitely do something. But I want to kind of focus on us as a people, needing to realize that we can create all this on our own. We need to focus on creating our own economy, our own community, our own neighborhoods. So we can have, if we had our own neighborhoods, we wouldn't be so focused on moving out of our community and moving into another community because that's said to be better. Instead, we'll focus on building and uplifting our community. So our community is already affordable. If we beautify our affordable community that's already affordable, we don't have to move out and then live to somebody else's neighborhood paying taxes into their community, different things like that. We can focus on our own. So that's how I look at it. I mean, even though it may be a good idea, it may not be a good idea, I think we should just focus on our own community and uplift our community, not focus on moving anywhere else.
I think that raises the question, actually, what is affordable? I mean, and it goes back to income and opportunity and having the means to have something that is affordable. I mean, if you have X amount of dollars, then, affordable housing looks completely different because you have the means to afford where you're living. Right. So I think at the end of the day, there's definitely a tie-in with the finances that you bring in.
Right. And for sure, because when you look at the medium income, blacks are lagging far behind. And so whenever there's, like when you had the crash, the housing crash where folks own homes and so on, and you had the balloon burst, there were a lot of people that suffered from that of all races, but blacks suffered even more. And it took longer for them to recover than other races when it comes to that. And so we know that there are still some systemic racism that is going on that is holding blacks back. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. let's just say, go back to the 40s and 30s and things like that, when blacks did want to do for themselves and did want to empower themselves and did want to do things for themselves. Blacks were still kept from getting licenses, whether it was in the airline, FAA, or whether it was in communications, radio, TV, and so on. Blacks was always discriminated against, where whites always had the privilege when they apply for their license, they get their license, get their license here. And so even if we had our own businesses 100%, and we're going to get into that, and blacks had the wealth to do things, because we're in a country that has a system set up that works against blacks. Unless you change that system, your prosperity and your moving forward progressively will still be hindered, because you're coming up against a racist system, because you're part of the system. Now, of course, Malcolm X talked about separation, but even with a separation, if you separate and build your own community over here, and so on, you're still in a country that hates you and can attack you and oppress you and keep you from moving forward. So, but I agree that we most definitely got to do some things for ourselves. That's one of the things Booker T. Washington was saying, hey, do for yourself and so on. Whereas W.e.d. Du Bois was attacking the system, saying, no, the system is a racist system. We got to change this because we need to be treated equally. So, Mr. Harris, could there be other reasons as to why blacks are moving out of San Diego?
Well, I have that conversation all the time. One thing is the lack of black population in San Diego, or the theory that there is a lack of black population, which I actually disagree with. I think obviously we're not a strong percentage of the city, right, but with the population being so high, there are black people here, and we're definitely spread out across the county, right, and we may not speak in one voice and move in one movement. However, and I guess that just goes back to me being a native of San Diego, that I feel like I'm pretty in tune with the black heartbeat, so to speak, here. But sometimes it's a cultural identity. People feel like the city's not black enough for them, or
I forget that all the time for people,
or there's just so there's definitely some cultural connections as far as people want to identify with more blackness, I guess, and just being out here on the West Coast in California, it's things, although, of course, racism does still exist and there's things of that nature, people are kind of a little more free to kind of do what you want to do out here as far as, socially or whatnot. But I think black people, especially those that come from other cities into San Diego, there's definitely a sense that, they're kind of lost. They're not, engaged with the black community. So I would say that would definitely be one of the primary reasons. But at the end of the day, a lot of locals, people that I grew up with here, that move away and experience a lower cost of living or things that are more affordable, that keeps them away from San Diego or even when they come back. So,
so Mr. Bowser, blacks have only 6%. No, I shouldn't say 6%. 6 cents to every dollar of white wealth. How can we increase wealth for blacks? I know we touched on a little bit, but can you add anything else to what you already said?
First off, before you go, 6 cents to every dollar. I didn't know it was that bad.
Yes.
Thanks for the education.
Yes.
We got to do better.
Yes. That's national. Yes.
Yeah. So it seems like we're in a position where it's actually beneficial, because it seems like we can only go up with it being so low. So we got to act fast and we got to do something about it, because those numbers.
So we can't wait, right?
Yeah, we can't wait. We got to act now. Find out what's happening now and act now. But no, I feel that definitely we need more trade building facilities and schools and things like that. So, for instance, there's a big market for engineering. There's a big market for computers and tech and different things of that nature. Yeah, so we need free trade training programs within our community. You know, you have UEI and DeVry and places like that. We need those buildings, man, popping up all over San Diego to help out, the black community. And these are programs that we can build ourselves. You know, not government funded things like that, but we need to raise the money ourselves to build these trade programs. And somebody, I think it was W.e.d. Du Bois that had said, you know, of 100% of black people, 10% are going to make it, but that 10% have to come back and help out the other 90%. Right. So the 10% of us black people that are successful and have made it out and got these great trades, whether it be in the tech field, construction, or whatever it may be, need to come back and teach individuals those trades. So that's kind of what we're doing right now with the Paving Great Futures. Is we have a culinary program called CHAMP. So it's Culinary Hospitality Administration Management Program. And one of the co-founders, Armand King, he's a chef. So he's using his skills as a chef to come back and teach others the culinary skills. Now think if we had this in all kind of different fields, a lot of people from the black community tend to become successful and then leave the black community, or go get degrees in those education. They don't come back to the black community to share that information. If that happened a lot more, we would be a lot more educated, have a lot more trades, be able to start businesses and thrive. And then also the black accountants and black bankers, they'll come back and teach you financial education. So now your business is thriving. Now you know how to save your money, and now we're growing. And then it's a whole wraparound, because then you have to attack the media, how it's set up. Then you have to attack our entertainment system, how it's set up, because the movies and the music that are pushed to our people, is mostly negative. When you watch the news, we can have peaceful protests, but they only want to show whenever a violent riot breaks out, and that's all across the board. So it has to be, attacked from all different angles, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. But we have to; those 10% that made it have to come back and give back.
I think you hit on a very important topic, and I like to call it tangible education. Actually learning something that's gonna produce fruit. Right. Sometimes correct. Because you can go out and get a degree and go into $100,000 worth of debt, but what was the value of that $100,000 of debt? Are you really using that degree to acquire what you were looking to do? And that's coming from somebody that has 2 college degrees myself, but, which I value and I prize, and I think it was great that I did that. But at the same time, when you look at the education system now, the cost to even become educated on a collegiate level and things like that, we really have to evaluate whether or not it actually makes sense or not. Exactly. And again, we want to have some things that are tangible that we can really utilize to start getting to the places that we want to go.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Harris, in San Diego, 7% of blacks own businesses. So, why is that? And what can we do to fix it?
7% of blacks own businesses, and I think we're about 6% of the population, so that's a percent higher, right? No, I'm teasing. No, I'm teasing. That was a joke, Bishop. That was a joke. No, but
they only own 7% of the business world here, blacks.
Of course, absolutely. I got
blacks. So only 7% of blacks own businesses out of the 100% of blacks.
I got you.
If I'm making sense.
That makes it even worse.
Yeah.
That's like a decimal when it comes to the overall. Yeah.
So only out of every 100 blacks, only 7 blacks have a business, have their own business. And the question is, why is that? What can we do to fix it?
Well, I think historically we've been we've been kind of more of a consumer-based. We've had a consumer-based thought process where we want to buy, spend. But I think there is a shift starting to take place now as far as the mentality of people. The desire, first off, the desire has to be there to want to own and create businesses. And then strategically, it has to make sense. I think there's somewhat of a fear to just jump out there and own your own business, because not just a black business, but any black business, the failure rate is very probable. It's not easy to own your own business.
It's not.
So I think that one reason is definitely the fear factor. If individuals had a means to open a business with more support, with more probability of succeeding, then I think we would see those numbers increase. So the question is how can we increase our confidence in opening businesses? What can we do to ensure that when a new business comes, or a business that already exists, what can we do to really support it and really see the growth, strategically
absolutely,
and collectively? So
absolutely. So, Mr. Bowser, what role does government have in helping blacks increase business ownership?
And then before we get to that, just to touch on what Barry was speaking on, he's absolutely correct. It's like we have to first build our culture up to where we want to support each other in our businesses and different things of that nature. So if we start a restaurant, it should be supported, auto mechanic shop, whatever it may be. But at the same time, us as business owners within the black community, we must hold ourselves to a high standard and have high quality service and have high quality products so that our people want to keep coming back to us as well. Because what we find in the black community is a lot of times there's black businesses that are started, but then they're ran inadequately to where it's poor service, the food may not be healthy, the place may not be clean, whatever it may be. So we have to give great, better service and better quality as well, and that will help our community out. Now, as far as what government can do to help us out, like I said again before, and I say all the time, we haven't got reparations, so definitely any kind of funds that can come into the community, we definitely deserve that, and we're owed that. But at the same time, we can't sit back and wait. I feel that they definitely should be throwing funds into it. I mean, if you look at all the money that government wastes. I remember watching the news over in Iraq, I believe it was, or Afghanistan. The government had built a gas station, and they spent $40 million to build this one gas station. And people were talking about how this was such a big waste of money and, different things like that. Don't you know what $40 million can do to a black community within a major city? I mean, it could do so much, but the money keeps getting diverted to other places. So we definitely need the funds, and at the same time, we need a lot of the red tape moved from when black people are trying to do business and trying to make things happen. For us having a nonprofit 501c3, what we realize is that there's a lot of red tape involved with getting the funds to come to the proper to come to the proper organizations that are doing the right thing. So a lot of that red tape needs to be removed so that the funds can be released immediately and faster. And at the same time, I used to be in the music industry. And there used to be A&Rs for the big record labels, and these A&Rs would go into the cities and find the talent. I think the government, while they're doing their funding, they need to have the same thing. The government needs to have A&R that are part of their grants and things like that go into the community and see who really is doing the work. And these A&Rs need to be from the community, or from a community that's similar, and need to come into and see who's really doing the work on the ground level. Because right now it's just who can write the best grants, who can present it the best, and then they may not actually be doing anything for the community, but they get the funds. So that's what's been setting us back a lot too. So if government can fix all that up, that'd definitely help us.
Yeah, and I think also one of the problems, at least from what I see on a local level with the mayor and so on, the mayor office, they place gatekeepers within our communities. As far as when you're talking about coming in, the mayor himself is not going to come in, but he listening to the people who claim that they are coming in here. But a lot of times those people have their biases, and they're not objective. If they hate this person and love this person, they get the person that they love, but sometimes the person that they love is not really successful running a good business, or not even equipped to be a good business owner versus the person that they hate.
Right.
And so if you're going to really recruit and bring the best that we have to the table, then it has to be a fair process of how you come in and do that. But I want to... The Voice of San Diego, which is a internet media outlet, it reported that the Jacob Center for Neighborhood Innovation owns almost 60 acres of land near the Euclid Trolley Station, and is drawing up plans to turn it into a place vibrant, pedestrian and transit-oriented urban village with reasonably priced housing. So they say, and they had some terrible houses that they had with roaches infested and everything else when they did it before, and places to work and shop. Now, Mr. Bowser, Jay Bowser, could this be gentrification? And you know, of course, a lot of people look at gentrification differently, but what I'm talking about is the process for renewal and rebuilding which is accompanying the influx of middle class or affluent people into deteriorating areas that often displaces poor residents. And some think that this could be a gentrification where they want to come beautify the place, bring all this business and bring more wealthier people into the community, but it displaces the poor, just like what we was talking about affordable housing. Sometimes when you talk about affordable housing, even right in our own community, they gentrify it and it end up becoming a place where it's more nice, like you said, it's more nice and beautiful, but you displace a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, you know, my personal opinion is it definitely is. I mean, you know, we got to get to the bottom of it, and that's what I tell people whenever we're talking somewhere, we're on a panel, we're trying to get people to understand. I say you always got to follow the dollar. So if you follow the dollar, everything makes sense. So yeah, you know, they may say they're trying to beautify the community and different things like that, but how does that benefit them? You know, they don't really care for our community like that. They never have. Not to say that they never will, but they don't currently at the moment, and they haven't in the past. So to say that they just want to beautify our community, you know, just because, hey, you know, we're trying to get back to you guys and we believe we just want to be good and you know, give back, you know, that's not the truth. The truth is you have to follow the money. So when it comes to the Southeast, it's very close to downtown. And so if you look at it from downtown, it's already been encroaching on, you know, what we call in the community as the coast. So it's already been encroaching on the coast, and then as it encroaches on the coast and it builds all these new high rises and new homes, then, you know, next is going to be the Southeast. And so what you start to realize is at each of the trolley stops on the Orange Line, they're starting to build new buildings around the trolley stop and new apartments and things like that to beautify it. So, you know, and me being born and raised here, native, I already realized a lot of friends and family are already starting to move east. So you get a lot of black people being placed in Spring Valley, being placed in El Cajon, because it's actually cheaper to live in those places than it is in the Southeast. So rent in the Southeast is getting higher as they're trying to beautify. So you're already getting gentrification because people are already moving to East County where it's cheaper. And it's just, so this is the same thing that's happened in Chicago. So we have to, you know, keep an eye out and be careful when these happen in cities, because I remember being in downtown Chicago, and as I was driving out of it, a buddy had explained how what was now a brand new skyrise used to be a project building. So when you start to displace people like that, it also leads to more gang violence and gun violence and things like that, because you now have a bunch of poor people that are moved into a whole nother area and have to fight for means of survival. So when you have to fight for means of survival and you're fighting for crumbs and things like that, you get a little more violence, which I think is starting to happen more in El Cajon City and things like places like that where you haven't seen violence before. You're starting to see a little more shootings popping up because now people are being pushed into one small compact place. So we definitely have to be careful. It definitely is gentrification, and it definitely is about the mighty dollar, and it's all about money, because if you can build these sky rises in these certain areas, I mean, it's going to be so beneficial for them. And as far as the Jacob Center, I believe it's there's a certain clause to where after so many years, land that you may have bought as a nonprofit, it gets transferred into you can transfer to your company or your family or whatever. So I know his family going to be taking that over and end up owning that. So this was the plan that was set up, you know, years and years and years ago, to own this community, beautified, kind of connected with downtown. We're a tourist city. I mean, it's all about the mighty dollar, and we're the ones that are going to be stuck with the bill in the end. So we definitely have to step up, and instead of complaining about it, what we can do is just start buying up some property, get our stuff together, man, and play the game, you know, the best way we can. It's just how it is.
So, you know, and I agree with you. And I also, when you was talking about displacement, I believe one of the other reasons why, you know, blacks and people of color are displaced is because income decrease, where folks can't even afford to live where they live, and that's why they move to El Cajon, different places like that, because it's more affordable, and so on. So you find people moving where they can afford to live because wages are decreasing instead of increasing. But this is another question I have for the both of you. Anyone, you could jump in on it. How do we make sure that the black agenda fit into the mayor's business plan?
Well, I think it starts by truly identifying exactly what is the black agenda. That's such a broad topic. I mean, yeah, we always identify issues and understand, there's various things that we need to address.
Right.
And I believe that we have the ability to multitask. So I hate when it feels like, we can only focus on one thing at a time. We have to focus on this problem only and nothing else, So I think it would be interesting if leadership in the black community created bullet points or a general black agenda that we all did agree on, that we realize that we realize, like, specifically, these are the items that we feel need to be addressed.
Exactly.
And there's buy-in collectively from the community.
Right.
The question is which black leaders, which black organizations, which black group is going to step up and be the ones to officially create that agenda of what we truly want. Because when we have a true agenda, that true agenda is what needs to get in front of the mayor, or what needs to get in front of some of these other political figures. Or whatnot.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And and I think that's part of the problem that we have, is that we're all over the place with it. And a lot of times what I find among, and this is not to badmouth anybody, but among black leaders, is that when they do get into these places, it becomes like, Booker T. Washington, he had access to the president, but the president was just using him for the black vote. But he had this prestige. It kind of gave him made him popular among blacks. So, he went into the White House. He's the first black man to guest with the White House. And so it's kind of the same way when folks are meeting with the mayor and discussing issues that affect the black community. But what ended up happening is that people, you see that the only gains are personal gains. Where that individual that's at the table, he got a job, or his business got some money, or his company, I should say, a corporation got some business through the mayor and so on, or they appointed this black person in to a position, but it doesn't overall affect or benefit and prosper the black community, because it's not really moving on a black agenda, whether you're talking about health or education or wealth and employment and things like that. And so I agree with you. We should be multitask in what we do and how we do it. And we most definitely, I believe that there's going to have to be some agitation, because the mayor does not even want to acknowledge that black people exist.
And if I can add one thing to that, this beautiful thing about this new generation is that we're kind of trying to do things a little bit different. If you look at Black Lives Matter, Reverend Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, things like that, are supposed to be the leaders of the past that have their probably own personal gain that they gain from trying to be leaders and things. They haven't been invited to these rallies, and they've actually been kicked out of some rallies because this new generation is tired of the old gatekeepers kind of, keeping prosperity at bay based on, they want it all for themselves. And so, as our generation coming up, we kind of can see that, and it's kind of obvious, so we're kind of trying to stay away from that a little bit. And the same thing within San Diego. There's a new generation, an uprising, and it has a disconnect from some elders based on they have been gatekeepers and keeping the prosperity from actually reaching the inner city and the community of San Diego based on their own personal gains. But at the same time, pretty much like the Willie Lynch later states, whether some believe it's real or not, what hurts us is the divide and conquer. So when the young is put against the old, light against dark, things like that, it definitely doesn't work out. So we have to find a way to where we can all come together. Those that may be the field Negro, those that may be the house Negro, those that may be older, those that may be younger, those that may be smarter, some less smart, less prosperous. We all have to figure out a way to all kind of work together. So once all of us as a black community work together, no matter which kind of, side it seems like wrong, if we all come together, that's where the true power is, because they're trying to keep us divided by, focusing on these little things.
Absolutely. Now, and I guess this question would be for you, Ms. Bowser, but Ms. Harris, you can jump in too. What is your opinion about Black Men United? Do you see them as a Booker T. Washington movement or a w.e.d. Du Bois movement?
As far as me myself, and it's crazy to just ask that question because it's kind of on what I was just stating.
Right.
As that I feel that the Black Men United, the beautiful thing about it is it has all kind of different walks of life. I mean, if you go in there, you're going to see those with the law enforcement. You're going to see those that are business owners. You're going to see those that are just, young individuals getting up out of the street life. You're going to see the individuals that's been out of the street life and now are community leaders. I mean, so it's so many different walks of life. Those that are prosperous, those that are not as prosperous yet but are aspiring to be prosperous. So it's like so many different walks of life. It's a beautiful thing, and we all have a equal voice and an equal input. So it's definitely a beautiful thing.
I actually really, really like the way Black Men United is structured. There's no really power chain, or chain of commandment, so to speak.
Right.
And I think it was strategically put together like that, so that individuals could come together, young and old, members of the clergy, people in the community could come together and have some honest conversations,
right.
And address issues. So overall, the Black Men United, it's a really, really powerful thing, and it's really good to just see people from different walks of life together, because Black people all together, we're a very diverse group in of itself. So it's very challenging. It actually upsets me when the thought process is out there that all Black people think in one way, or there is one form. Like I love the fact that we're able to respectfully disagree with one another and call each other out on things that we may not agree with, but it's always with respect and it's always in love. And I think that if we could kind of take that spirit and expand it even beyond, Black Men United and things of that nature, I think it would just add to everything that we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. So there are 450,000 San Diegans who live below the federal poverty line. Poor individuals living in poor neighborhoods face a doubly challenged set of circumstances, including higher crime rates, lower performing schools, fewer nearby job opportunities, and worse health outcomes. A number of studies have shown that families trying to climb the socioeconomic ladder out of poor neighborhoods need to overcome their own individual hardships at the same time that they face greater external challenges and have less community capital than better off neighborhoods. Communities like Southeast San Diego are low-income, poverty-stricken communities. Over 50% of the people that live in Southeast San Diego live in poverty. And yes, most of them work. What brings so many people, poor people, into one concentrated area like Southeast San Diego? Either one of you can jump on that.
Well, things like this, especially within San Diego, if I understood the question correctly, I mean, this has been set up a long time ago, and you probably can remember this is, from back when you was a child and things like that. But, I mean, we were kind of kept and pushed south of the 8, so it's kind of like what you have in communities or cities all across America is that you have, the poor, the minority, all kind of focused in one area, and heavily policed. And then that way you can keep the suburbs that are surrounding it, free of, those kind of people, the less desirable, I guess they would consider it. And they can feel safe, they can feel safe behind their communities, behind their gates, or whether it's if you notice the trolley line, I believe it's the blue line that stays up above the 8 or along the 8 or green line, whatever it is. And then the orange line is south of the 8 and it doesn't go all the way around, so they keep you like that. Bus lines, and the trolley doesn't run to Del Mar, it doesn't run to La Jolla.
Right. So
it's purposely set to where we're kind of kept in this box with hopes that we won't figure out how to make it out of that box. But at the same time, as time went on, I started to think, do we have to try to make it out of that box, or can we just beautify and make our own box grand? Like us as Black people always do. We can always take nothing and turn it into something and make everybody else want to be a part of that. So I think we should take this box that we in, beautify it, make it great, do great things with it, and we won't have to look for outside sources. Just like they have Chinatown and Koreatown, we need to have Africatown, whatever it may be. We need to have our own. That's why I feel we should kind of get back to. Not saying
go to Africa.
Huh?
They have Little Africa.
Yeah. They got Little Africa, but we gonna make it Big Africa.
Yeah. I think that, that's kind of like a something oppression. For sure, we should beautify our communities, and I did some research on this. And when you have communities that are more beautiful, the streets, the parks, the trees, the houses, and so on, it reduces violence. It reduces that kind of activity because the person feels better about where they live in their community. And I think all San Diego should be that way. No matter where. I don't think there should be a division or the dividing factor of whether it's the 8th freeway or whatever. Anywhere you live in San Diego should be a beautiful place, and you should be able to go live there and prosper and do well, rather than being boxed in saying, oh, this is the only place I can prosper, is right here, and so on. So one other question. Have any of you seen or heard any policies that Mayor Faulkner has come up with that will fight inequities?
The simple answer is no.
What about Mr. Bowden?
No, I haven't heard any. Matter of fact, when individuals tend to run for office, you get maybe a lot of different promises and things that are supposed to happen. I remember the Diamond District, which they're trying to call the Southeast now.
That's
and,
the Jacob Center.
Yeah, the Jacob Center. They were supposed to beautify, and we do this thing called Four Corners of Life on Euclid and Imperial, and that whole area was supposed to be decorated with lights and repainted and things like that. And once people are in office, then all of a sudden that kind of gets thrown out. And so we was like, man, let's just try to do this ourselves, and which is hard to do when you don't have the funds, but it is possible just to do it yourself because they're definitely not doing it. So as far as any policies, yeah, there were some before, but were they actually enacted that I can see? No.
So, and I know we're running out of time, but there are 58 counties in California.
Yeah.
San Diego is number 2 for largest county, and for the black population, San Diego ranks number 4. Yet San Diego ranks number 39 for the best place to live in San Diego for blacks. How can we, and we touched on a little bit, but I want to polish it up a little bit if we can. How can we make San Diego a better place for blacks to live in? We just touched on it here or there, but any added opinion on that?
Again, to me, it's us taking accountability.
Amen.
We have to make San Diego a place that we want to be. Obviously, the city doesn't cater to us.
Right.
The city.
We have to be able to attract.
Right. We have to be able to attract, draw, create.
That's right.
Because let's be honest, we still are leaders in general, for whether locally, whether statewide, whether nationwide. You see the creativity and some of the things coming out of the black community that's duplicated. You see it time and time and time again. So why not take the attractiveness that we bring and cultivate it amongst ourselves in the city and really create a quote unquote black San Diego that we really want to see.
Absolutely.
And really grab that by the horns and each one be accountable for creating it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was earlier when we was talking about blacks in San Diego, and as far as people saying it's not that many blacks and so on because they don't look at the 5% or whatever. But one of the things that folks don't realize, and I was dealing with a gentleman, he was in the military, he's from Ohio, and the city that he lived in was like probably 60%, high percentage of blacks, and I guess they saw blacks everywhere. And but I took the whole population of the city that he lived in, and I just took the number of blacks that were in San Diego, and it was way more blacks in San Diego than was in the whole city that he lived in.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people don't, what you were talking about earlier, a lot of people don't really realize that we do have a big population of black folks here, but we're just scattered and all over the place, and
it definitely looks different.
Whites and Latinos, so it kind of like make us look spotty here or there.
Right.
But when you come together. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right. When you're in a city with a population of 25,000 and 24,000 of those people are black, it's going to look a little different. And, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, just a matter of perception. But as far as there actually being a black population in San Diego, it's here. It's just a matter of, are we cultivating it? Are we in communication with one another? Is there even that desire? There may be a segment of that population that doesn't even desire to be in involved like that.
Right,
So
right.
there's a lot of different questions that do need to be asked.
And add in like one thing with the black community in San Diego, why you kind of have like this black flight thing is based on. It's a large jail population and prison population. So a lot of our blacks, are in jail and prison. And on top of that, when you get out, you may have 2 strikes. So now you're like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go stay with some family out of state and whatnot, so I don't get this 3rd strike. So you have a lot of individuals moving for that. Like we talked about earlier, the prices are so high, so people have to move for those reasons. And just the inequality, getting put over and stopped a lot of the times and being harassed. And even if I want to go to a bar or something in PB or downtown, if it's 3 or more black people together, I've been denied on entering because they have to keep a certain percentage of black people within these establishments. So it definitely is a setup for us. A lot of people get frustrated and they end up leaving.
Yeah, and we're gonna run out of time in a minute, but we're gonna keep going until we run out of time. This question is for both of you. You can jump in any way you like. But when politicians talk about bringing jobs into Southeast San Diego, is it the same as bringing jobs to blacks in the same community? And
well, when politicians talk about bringing jobs into Southeast, I don't know. I guess I always kind of take that with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, we just need to see the actual numbers. We need to see the actual results of what's being brought to the city. So, it's kind of a touchy subject, if you.
Yeah, because I know from one thing that they were supposed to do with the Jacob Centers when they built that Walgreens, there was supposed to be a certain percentage of black people from the community are supposed to be hired there, but who's following up on that, who's making sure that that's happening. We have to have a committee set up to make sure that these things are actually going through. And at the same time, it's like, let's just start building our own businesses and hiring our own, man, and keep these other corporations out and just do it ourselves.
Amen. So, do you all have anything else you'd like to add? We're going to go ahead, and we're running out of time. We're going to go ahead and close it out. Anything you gentlemen would like to add?
I'd just like to say thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure hanging out. Dear Black San Diego, I want you to know that I love you. I support you. Paving Great Futures, we're a nonprofit here in the city. We're here to support the community. If there's anything that we can do, definitely give us a call, get in contact. I'll let Mr. Bowser wrap it up.
I just want to double down on the thanks for having us here. And one thing I want to say is, let's come together, let's unite, and let's stop looking for resources and help from outside. Let's do it from within.
All right. I want to thank you, Mr. Bowser and Mr. Barry Harris, for being on our show. It was an honor and privilege to have you here, and hope to have you here more often. I'd like to encourage all my listeners to come by and visit our church worship service on Saturdays at 11:30 at 610 South 30th Street in San Diego, California. And thank you for listening, and tune in next week for another great show on What's Happening Now with your host, Bishop Bowser, on KBLKradio.com. And may Yahweh bless you, and have a great day.